بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. We hope and we pray that everyone is doing well tonight inshallah ta'ala, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He makes us among those who learn beneficial knowledge and benefit from that which they learn, and inshallah ta'ala are able to apply it in their lives and benefit both in this life and in the hereafter inshallah ta'ala. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He makes our gatherings of blessings and forgiveness inshallah. To proceed, inshallah ta'ala, this is our class about Ibadur Rahman, and we will actually begin inshallah ta'ala doing a tafsir of the verse, and then inshallah ta'ala discussing yani the ayah and highlighting some of the ideas inshallah ta'ala behind the verse. And this is the first characteristic of Ibadur Rahman. So far, just to recap, we spoke about what does the word abd mean? Slave, servant, and how the Prophet ﷺ is in fact the best slave or servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We talked about the name of Allah Ar-Rahman and why He specifically mentions Ar-Rahman here, etc. So we'll ask that question inshallah ta'ala. We'll re-ask it once we start actually in the verse. So right now what we'll do is, every verse that we discuss inshallah ta'ala, we will have it we will translate it inshallah ta'ala word for word, and then we'll translate the meaning inshallah ta'ala and provide it so that people have access to it. So, is everybody ready inshallah ta'ala? What does the word ibad mean? Or wa ibad? Wa ibad. What does it mean? I'm sorry, I know there's a lot of little kids. Wa ibad. So what's the wa? And, right? What about ibad? Servants, slaves. It's plural. Jama', mazboot. It's plural. Okay, very good. So we have wa'ibad and the servants, but obviously it doesn't have the. We added the because of Ar-Rahman. What's Ar-Rahman? The merciful. Aywa, it's one of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The most merciful or the merciful, correct. Alladina. What's alladina? The one. Aywa, the one. The ones who? It's plural, the ones. Yamshuna. Aywa, they walk. Ala. On. Very good. I know for a lot of the Arabs, but this is helpful for the people who don't speak Arabic. They can see what the words mean. Does that make sense? They can see where we're getting them from. When we say ala, should be on. Al-ard. Aywa, the earth. Hawna. Easy. What else does it mean? Yamshuna ala al-ardi hawna. They walk on the earth gently. Naam? It doesn't have the word peace, because the word peace is actually in the verse. Humble, gently, all these are correct. With humility. Yes, humbly, with humility, yeah. وَإِذَا. What does وَإِذَا? And if, or it actually means and when. Sometimes it's if, sometimes it's when. Here it's when it happens, right? But yes. خَاطَبَهُمْ. Anyway, they talk to them, they address them, very good. خَاطَبَهُمْ, address them. الْجَاهِلُونَ. The ignorant ones, very good. But also means the foolish. And we'll talk about this. We have a whole discussion on this. Al-Jahiluna qalu, they said, Salama. Salama. Peace. Salam. They say peace. So we're going to discuss this. Any questions on this? But who can make this into a sentence in English? Who can put this into a sentence? All the English words together, and then make a sentence.
When the servants of Allah walk on the earth, they humble themselves, and when the foolish or the ignorant, they say, peace.
Very good. Very good. See? It's very easy, straightforward. and the servants of the most merciful are the ones. So we're missing, and this is their description. They are the ones who, and this is description number one. So all of this is the first thing that Allah mentions about them. Now He has, over the course of these 13 verses, there's 8 main things, and then there's sub things that He also mentions about them. But 8 main things that Allah mentions about Ibadur Rahman, this is the first thing that He mentions about them. So Ibadur Rahman are the ones, right, who walk upon the earth humbly with humility, and when the ignorant talk to them or address them, they say words of peace. So here's an English description that we have up on top, وَعِبَادُ الرَّحْمَنِ, and then we have some the verse in Arabic, and then this is one of the translations. This is a translation by Dr. Mustafa Al-Khattab, who works with us in Ayera, but this is his translation from the translation that he did. Very good. So we're going to ask some questions, inshallah ta'ala. Number one, why are they called Ibadur Rahman here in these verses? Why aren't they called Ibadullah, as an example? Remember we discussed this last time. We're repeating it again. لماذا سموا عباد الرحمن؟ هناك عدة أسباب. Right? There's many reasons why they're called the servants of Ar-Rahman in particular. One of them is what? What's the context? Did the name of Ar-Rahman come before this? Before this verse, in the same surah, Surah Al-Furqan. It did. And how did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually mention it? Here's the verse. وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمُ اسْجُدُوا لِلرَّحْمَنِ. So Allah who is He talking about here? He's talking about the mushrikeen, the disbelievers. Allah mentions about them, He says, and when the disbelievers were invited, this is not the translation of the verse, this is the meaning. When they were invited to prostrate to Ar-Rahman specifically, وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمُ اسْجُدُوا لِلرَّحْمَنِ قَالُوا وَمَا الرَّحْمَنِ. They said, what is Ar-Rahman? أَنَسْجُدُ لِمَا تَأْمُرُنَا وَزَادَهُمْ نُفُورًا. They said, what is Ar-Rahman? We don't know this. They didn't want to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they were making up an excuse as if they didn't know what this meant. Obviously they knew what it meant, but they hadn't used that name as a proper name for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which means that sometimes ignorance of Allah's names can lead to disbelief. This is why one of the things that we try to do is obviously learn the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, their meanings, and how to worship Him through those names as well. So it is said to them, when it is said to them, prostrate to Ar-Rahman, they said no. A few verses down is وَعِبَادُ الرَّحْمَنِ. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is contrasting. He's saying, look, you have this group of people, the kuffar, they didn't worship Allah. On the other side, I'm going to tell you who properly worships Ar-Rahman. These people said no to Ar-Rahman. These people said yes to Ar-Rahman. So now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so obviously it's very befitting that Allah now will describe the proper worshippers of Ar-Rahman. Does that make sense? So on one side we have the people who rejected Ar-Rahman. So obviously here He's mentioning the people who will in fact worship Ar-Rahman. Here's another question. Can we say that He's describing the companions of the Prophet ﷺ based upon what I said just now? How? Aywa. Okay. Also, remember, this is talking about an incident. وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ. Allah actually, they were invited. The Prophet invited the mushrikeen to prostrate. They didn't. So obviously, by extension, the people who did prostrate, the people who did accept the message, they did worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, would be who? They were who? They were the Sahaba. So in essence, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here is describing the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, the people who actually believed in the Prophet, by extension. Does that make sense? So this is agreed upon, that this description is now for many of the Sahaba, especially the great Sahaba, that these were their characteristics. So this is one thing to note. Another thing, this is another question now, does it include other people? People who come after the Sahaba? Can it include them? Can it? Yes. As long as they what? Well, not only they believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, believe in Ar-Rahman, but they actually follow the description. So at the time of the Sahaba, they were already doing these things. Does that make sense? In their character, all these things, and Allah is describing them now in detail. For us, we might lack in some of these areas. And so for us, we would try to imitate these things in order to be like the Sahaba and also get the same reward as they got. Does that make sense? So for us, we want to try to apply as many of these characteristics as possible to be included in that. Do we get the exact same reward as the Sahaba? Do we get the exact same ajr of the Sahaba? The exact same? Maybe, Allahu A'lam, Sahih. The Prophet ﷺ, he says, وَدِدْتُ لَوْ رَأَيْتُ what did he say? إخوانكم or إخواني, my brothers or your brothers. And they said, أَوَلَسْنَا إِخْوَانُكَ, are we not your brothers? He said, بَلْ أَنْتُمْ أَصْحَابِي, rather my brothers are who? قَوْمٌ لَمْ يَأْتُوا بَعْدِ آمَنُوا بِي وَلَمْ يَرَوْنِي, people who haven't come yet, but they believed in me while having not seen me. We haven't seen the Prophet, we never met him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but we love him, and our love for him is an amazing love. If you truly think about it as a man, the love that the Muslims have for Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam doesn't humanly make sense, because we haven't met him, we don't have like pictures of him, we don't have movies of him, you know what I mean? We don't have videos that we can refer, nothing. It's not like he has a social media account where people can follow him, khalas. Yet despite this, he is loved more than any human being on this planet. Correct? Nobody is more beloved to his followers and to the people who follow him and to the people who take him as their prophet and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Well, you name me a celebrity, I can show you that people love Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam even more. You name me a king, a ruler, a president, whoever, people love Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam more. We know this. Yet the Prophet was saying, إخواننا لم يأتوا بعد. And then he says, للعابد فيهم أجر 50 منكم. Right, in another hadith, now? Oh, I thought he was replying to me, sorry. So he says, for one of them, the worshipper from among these people, they get the reward of 50 of you. And the Sahaba said, 50, you mean 50 of them? He said, no, 50 of you. لماذا? Why? Why did they get 50 of the Sahaba?
We believe without even having met him, and we still do rightful acts without.
So that's what he mentioned in the beginning, but that's not the reason he mentions here. Here specifically he mentions a particular reason. Obviously that's a part of it, yes, because he already mentioned that, so that's correct. But here, what does he say? Naam? Aywa. And what? So not only is it hard, obviously the Sahaba faced hardship, but what did he say? إنهم لا يجدون على الخير أعوانا وتجدون. They don't find a'wan, helpers to do good, where you find helpers. You guys have a lot of help. There's a community, there's whatever. But for them, later on, there will be times when one of those worshippers is completely alone, he's by himself, he doesn't find anybody to help him upon the khair, upon the good. Obviously, inshallah ta'ala, hopefully we're not at that time. Right? Does that mean that we don't have a reward? La, alhamdulillah, we have a reward. But obviously here, alhamdulillah, we have a community, we have a masjid. He's talking about a time when a person even wants to do any type of good and he finds nobody to help him. A'udhu billah, and that's a very difficult time, obviously. For us though, do we get a huge reward? Inshallah ta'ala, the hope is, with the right niyyah, with the right intention, with the right deeds, everything like this, inshallah ta'ala. Very good? In the surah, it mentions a reward for these people. Obviously, because we're asking about reward. So in terms of the reward that's mentioned in the surah, would we get, if we try to apply these things in our life, would we get the reward that's mentioned in the surah? Yes. What is that reward though? What is the reward mentioned in the surah? For the people who know the surah, or the people who can go ahead, if they have the Mus'haf or the Quran app on their phone, they can look it up. What does it say? It says, أُولَٰئِكَ يُجَزَوْنَ الْغُرْفَةَ بِمَا صَبَرُوا وَيُلَقَّوْنَ فِيهَا تَحِيَّةً وَسَلَامًا. أُولَٰئِكَ, those, meaning عباد الرحمن, يُجْزَوْنَ الْغُرْفَةِ. They will be given al-ghurfa. Al-ghurfa is a particular part of Jannah, special part of Jannah for these types of people. بِمَا صَبَرُوا, for what they had patience upon. We'll talk about this verse inshallah time when we get to it. Right now we're still in the beginning, okay? But that's the reward. So obviously there is a reward, and obviously anybody who applies this, not just the Sahaba, inshallah ta'ala will get the reward. Does that make sense? So this is the point that we wanted to mention. Okay, the first characteristics of the servants of Ar-Rahman is what? What does it mention here in the verse? They walk upon the earth with humility. They're humble. And this is, subhanAllah, an amazing thing. We would assume the first thing that Allah would mention is what? They believe in Allah. They follow His Messenger. These types of things, right? But in fact, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning their walk. He's not mentioning anything else but their walk, which is a very curious thing. And so far, there's a discussion like why? Why is it that the first thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions about them is their walk? And we'll have this discussion. I want you guys to think about this answer, right? But we'll answer it inshallah ta'ala at the end. Does that make sense? Not right now, but this is a question that I want everybody to kind of think about inshallah ta'ala. So the first characteristic, the humbleness, the humility that they have with regards to their walk. Similar to this is a prophetic commandment, meaning it's a command to the Prophet ﷺ in Surah Al-Isra, where Allah mentions, وَلَا تَمْشِ فِي الْأَرْضِ مَرَحًا إِنَّكَ لَن تَخْرِقَ الْأَرْضَ وَلَن تَبْلُغَ الْجِبَالَ طُولًا. وَلَا تَمْشِ فِي الْأَرْضِ مَرَحًا. Do not walk upon this earth what? Maraha, full of like joy and boastful and arrogant. إِنَّكَ لَن تَخْرِقَ الْأَرْض. You're not going to put a hole in the earth, and you're not going to reach the mountains in height. So humble yourself. Even among the creation, the regular creation, not the human beings, you're not even that great. Right? And this is the idea that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is trying to tell us. See, and do not walk on the earth arrogantly. Surely you can neither crack the earth nor stretch to the height of the mountains. So what does hawna mean? Humbly, with humility. But hawwin alayka, if I say to a person in Arabic, hawwin alayka, what does that mean? For the people who speak Arabic. Take it easy. Good, that's a good translation. Slow down. So some people mistakenly understood the verse to mean not humbly or with humility. They understood it to mean walk slowly. Okay? From just a purely linguistic point of view, hawwin alayk, take it easy, like slow down. Okay? So hawna, they thought, it means to walk slowly. Question, how fast did the Prophet ﷺ walk in his walk? Did he walk fastly? أيوة كان يمشي كأنما تطوى له الأرض. In the hadith it says that the description of the Prophet ﷺ أو كأنما ينحدر. It's like as if he's going downhill. The way that he walked was as if he was going downhill. Like it was just effortless, but it was quick. He was quick-stepped. And another one, كأنما تطوى له الأرض. It's as if the earth itself is folding itself for him. Which means that he walked faster than it looked. And he would get farther just in his walk than it looked. So he didn't walk slowly. So we understand, obviously, in contrast to the Sunnah, and this is why knowledge of the Sunnah is important to understand the Quran, because without knowledge of the Sunnah, we wouldn't be able to fully appreciate what this verse actually means. You have to look at it within the context. So if we look at how the Prophet ﷺ walked, obviously the Prophet ﷺ walked very fastly. So here it has nothing to do with the speed. Does that make sense? طيب, does it mean weakness? Like should a person like kind of break down and like put his head down and walk like this? So Umar, there's a story, Umar radiallahu anhu, he saw a man walking like this. Young man, he's like full of youth, but he's walking like this. So he sees him, أفيك مرض? Are you sick? قال لا. قال إذن يعني اعتدل في مشيتك. He told him, stand up, walk straight. So it has nothing to do with the physical characteristic of how you're walking. Does that make sense? You can walk upright. You don't have to walk like, when it says hawna, you're just putting your head down and walking like this. This is not what it means. There's another man. So in this case, he beat the man and told him to walk upright. كَانَ مَعَهُ عَصَى. So he's like, stand up. And he was like, okay. And he walked better. Another man, on the opposite, he saw him walking arrogantly. Now here's a question. Can we tell when a person walks arrogantly? Is it apparent? Yes, it is. We can see this. Just like we can see somebody who's trying to be too you know what I mean, broken down. We can also see somebody arrogant. What's an arrogant walk? He's walking, broad shoulders. He's like, I own this place. You know what I mean? I'm the best thing that, has walked here. So he's walking like this. And obviously this is a problem. And that arrogant walk is also problematic. What did Umar do to this man? Same thing, he yelled at him. He's like, why are you walking like this? Walk with humbleness and humility. Okay? So, can a person go to either extreme? Yes. The walk has to be i'tidal, middle ground. You're boasting about not one or the other, because here's the thing: if a person exaggerates his humility in his walk, can that be actually a form of arrogance? Yes, because he's showing off. He's trying to tell everybody, look, I'm this humble, miskin guy. When in fact he's not. There's nothing wrong with him, but he's trying to portray a false image. And portraying a false image of piety obviously is actually a form of arrogance, because the person doesn't have it. Okay. The best way to walk is the way that the Prophet ﷺ describes when he says, walk to salah. How does he say that a person should walk to salah, to go to the prayer time? Here's the hadith. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا أتيتم الصلاة فلا تأتوها وأنتم تسعون وأتوها وعليكم السكينة فما أدركتم فصلوا وما فاتكم فأتموا. Some people used to go to the salah and they would be rushing. They're like trying to catch the salah, right? He's running, and then he joins the salah, Allahu Akbar, and he's trying to catch. And the Prophet didn't like this, and he says, do not come to the salah وأنتم تسعون, like you're in a hurry. Don't come to it hurriedly. Come to it, وَعَلَيْكُمُ السَّكِينَةِ, you have tranquility, you have sakina upon you. The best thing that a person can have is sakina. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all some sakina, inshallah ta'ala. So he says, come to it while you have sakina. And then he says, فَمَا أَدْرَكْتُمْ فَصَلُّوا, whatever you catch, pray. And whatever you miss, khalas, complete it. It's not a big deal. Whatever is written upon you that you should get is written. But don't run. Do we have people who run to the salah? Yes. Obviously, should we seek the salah out? Yes. Should we be purposefully late? No. And if a person is sitting at home and is like, I'll go like purposefully late to show up and I'll just catch like the last rak'ah or whatever, this is a problem. And if there were people, and there are people even today, if they know that the salah is going to take a long time, what do? They go late. They're like, I know this sheikh, this imam, he recites very slowly, I'll just go late. There was a masjid that we went to, I won't say in which city, I don't want to embarrass, but the imam, Wallah, Salat al-Fajr would take 25 minutes. Salat al-Fajr. This Imam, mashallah, whatever, may Allah reward him, inshallah ta'ala, for his intention. But it caused a problem for some of the people in the congregation. They would know, like, I have 25 minutes. So like Salah already started and he's still at home. He's like, because it takes me 5 minutes to get to the Salah, I'll just go when there's about like 10 minutes to go. Or like 15 minutes to go, and that way I'll only catch like 10 minutes. Because 10 minutes is my limit. More than this, I'll get tired. Fajr regular days. This is not Ramadan, for example, or something like this. Maskeen, and some people wouldn't even go. And this is a problem. Who did this? One of the Sahaba. He would, at Fajr time, do what? Read Surah Al-Baqarah. Allahu Akbar. Imagine you walk into the masjid and he's reading Surah Al-Baqarah. So one of the tabi'een, this happened at the time of the tabi'een, by the way, where the Khalifa, I think it was an Umayyad Khalifa or one of the Abbasid, one of the Khulafa, he called the scholar in and he says, I heard that you beat an imam up one time. Like an imam of a masjid, you actually beat him up. Is this true? And he says, it wasn't just me, it was everybody in the masjid. He's like, what happened? He's like, I'll tell you. And then you can judge for yourself. He's like, okay. So he's like, I went into this masjid. It wasn't a normal masjid that I go to. And the imam was reciting Surah Al-Baqarah. And he read and read and read and read and read until كادت أن تطلع الشمس. The sun is about to rise. And he's reading and like it's starting to get very bright. And this is back in the day, they didn't have electricity, so they can see this. And when he finished the salah, he looked behind everybody. Everybody's tired, exhausted. They're praying, and the sun is almost up. And then he's like, عفوا يا جماعة أعيدوا صلاتكم فإني لم أكن متوضئ لم أكن على طهارة. He says, I'm sorry guys, everybody has to repeat your salah because I didn't have wudu. So the Khalifa at the time, he said, Wallah, I would have beat him with you as well. I wouldn't have left to go. Imagine, and you have like 5 minutes left, and it's like, you have to redo your salah. By the way, from a fiqh point of view, that is one opinion, that your salah is invalid. However, I follow the opinion, and this is Madhab Imam Ahmad and Shafi'i and others, that say that the wudu of the imam has nothing to do with the wudu of the musallin. So if he prayed and he didn't have wudu, that's his fault. Does that make sense? He has to redo, I don't have to. My salah is completely valid. Does that make sense? Now, why do they say this, just as a fiqh tangent? Why do they say that you have to redo your wudu? Because they say the mistakes of the imam, you're accountable for as well. But those are the mistakes that are in the salah. Mistakes before or after I have nothing to do with. So for example, if the imam forgets something, everybody has to do sujood sahw, even though the imam was the only one who forgot. Does that make sense? So they do qiyas and, measuring upon this, then if he doesn't have wudu, then also I have to redo my salah. But in fact, because wudu is a shart of salah, it's a condition, so it's before salah, I have nothing to do with that. Yes, if he makes a mistake in salah, we all just do sujood sahw. Does that make sense? But outside of the salah, I'm not accountable. Yes?
Well, like, what if you guys chose him to be imam even though you know he has no wudu?
How do I know that he doesn't have wudu? Am I following him around? There's no way for me to actually know that. Even if I see him make wudu, would I know if he broke it? I wouldn't know. Does that make sense? So I can't really. And obviously this is why we pick, theoretically obviously, generally speaking, when we pick somebody to lead the salah, we understand that obviously he has to have proper knowledge, he knows how to make wudu, he knows all these things. Does that make sense? Yes. Yes.
Driving to masjid, speeding to masjid is part of the
Speeding to the masjid, yeah, it could be, 100%. Yeah, Because when you're speeding, are you being reckless? Could you actually harm yourself and harm the others around you for the sake of just catching a little bit more? Taban, yeah, of course. Obviously, I'll tell you this, I'm guilty, I do speed a little bit sometimes, but there's reasonable speeding and then there's reckless speeding. There's reckless where the person is just doing things that are obviously inherently dangerous. Aslan, I'll tell you this, studies have shown that the person who drives 5 miles over the speed limit is actually a safer driver than everybody else on the road, because it forces him to pay attention. Where the person is driving slow, usually he's drifting, his mind isn't there, he's not active driving, he's impulsively driving. If the person who's actively driving is that person who is speeding just a little bit, but it actually is it's forcing him to pay attention, and that person actually is the safest driver on the road. But this is just a side note, Yani.
If you're in Macon County, you drive 5 miles, the speed limit, you'll get a ticket.
They'll give you a ticket? Wow. Okay, never mind. Drive 4. No, just kidding. But I'm saying, generally speaking, yeah. Obviously, they have a lot of time on their hands, probably, or they want to make money, so yeah, they're bored. So, anyways, going back, there's the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ. A man comes to him and he says, Ya Rasulullah, when I go pray behind one of these Sahaba, I think it was Mu'adh, Sahih, Mu'adh. And he says, I go and I pray behind Mu'adh. I know Mu'adh takes so long that I go purposefully late. And what does the Prophet ﷺ tell Mu'adh? وَبَّخَهُ, he scolds Mu'adh. Says, Ya ma'ashar al-muslimin, inna minkum munaffirin. O Muslims, some of you are munaffirin. What does munaffirin mean? Yeah, basically, yeah. You're pushing people away. But an-nafara is like where the person you're doing the exact opposite. Instead of encouraging, you're discouraging people from Islam. You're discouraging them from religiosity. You want to be religious, do it on your own time. This is what he told Mu'adh. He says, look, you want to read the Baqarah, you want to do these things, do it on your own. بس من كان منكم إماما أو من كان مؤتما فليأتم بأضعف القوم أو بأضعفهم. Whoever is going to be an imam, let him يأتم, follow the weakest of the people that he's leading. Which means that the weakest person is our leader. In reality, there's actually a whole leadership concept based upon this idea, which is that you are, one, only as strong as your weakest link, But your weakest link is actually your most important one. Meaning the weakest person there is who we should follow. Naam?
You mean the weakness person is based on intentional?
La. Weakest meaning, so, as an example, just to demonstrate this point. In salah, if I know, for example, there's a person behind me who he can't pray more than 10 minutes. This is his limit. And if I go 15, is this a problem for that guy? Yes. He might not come back. Which means that I have to make my salah 10 minutes. Even if the rest, let's say we're praying 100 people, 99 they can pray 15 minutes. But one guy, he can only pray 10. I have to pray 10. One guy can only handle 5. I have to pray 5. If he's weak, he can't stand for that long. If he is busy, whatever. So he forces the imam to kind of follow him. But the Prophet ﷺ also said this about a qafila. Qafila is a caravan. In the caravan, one of the Sahaba, I believe it was Jabir ibn Abdullah, his camel became weak. And a long story of how he bought the camel from Jabir, and then he returned the camel back to him. Jabir's camel was sick, and Jabir is way in the back. So the Prophet ﷺ gets on his camel, goes all the way to the back of the caravan, tells the people in the caravan to hold down, slow down, because we have stragglers behind us. But if the caravan keeps on going at that high speed, eventually people like Jabir will be left behind. The Prophet ﷺ flipped it around when he told Jabir, you need to go to the front. Because you're the slowest person. When we put you in the front, everybody else will be able to follow. We'll stay together as a group. But if we, in our hurriedness, keep on going, we're going to leave people behind. Does that make sense? So this is why when I say the weakest person is the leader, it's not that he's in charge. It's that we put him in the front so that everybody else will follow his footsteps as well. Does that make sense? In the hadith of Jabir, the Prophet ﷺ goes back to Jabir. He talks to him, what's wrong? He says, my camel is sick, etc. And so the Prophet ﷺ goes to the camel and he makes dua. He touches the camel, he makes dua on the camel. What happens to the camel? It gets up, it's better, it's completely healthy. And then he tells Jabir, hey Jabir, would you like to sell me the camel? He says, Ya Rasulullah, you can take it. He says, no, I don't want to take it. I want to buy it from you. Now why was the Prophet wanting to buy it from Jabir? No, the Prophet had his qaswa, his camel. Qaswa was a very good camel. The Prophet didn't technically need another camel. But why was he wanting to buy this one from Jabir? He's helping Jabir. Jabir needed money. And so the Prophet wanted to help this guy, and so he wanted to buy it. And Jabir didn't realize this. This is why he was like, Ya Rasulullah, take the camel, it's yours. I don't want to, I'm not going to. He says, no. The market value, whatever the market value is, this is what I'm going to pay. Okay. So he says, I don't have the money on me now. When we get back to Medina, I'll pay you the money. And then Jabir said, I don't have a ride to Medina. Can I ride it until we get to Medina? Yes. So you can put conditions. It doesn't have to be done now. You can put conditions to finish the deal later. And then later, of course, Jabir brings the camel and they exchange the money. And then the Prophet commands and he returns the camel back to Jabir. Yeah, he gives it back to him. Because he made dua. Now the camel is he's like, this is a good camel now. The Prophet made dua and now it's like one of the best. It was the fastest. It became really well. So, anyways, this shows us that the Prophet was obviously willing to help many of the companions as well, whenever he could, to help them out. Okay. Any questions on this so far? Yes.
The question is about the salah, how we can compromise because salah for example.
Yeah.
It was important that the Sahaba used to decide long verses
yes.
Anyone used to decide use a long path. But also himself Friday usually he decides Sunday and then the second one he decides
yes.
So how we can compromise this one like for example the rest is usually is more than strong, but the Fajr is
longer. So usually the people who also come to Fajr, are they a little bit stronger as well? Yes. Does that make sense? This is why generally speaking Fajr can be longer than the other ones, yes. But if we know that the people can't handle those limits, do we have to do those exact parameters? La. This is what the Prophet ﷺ did. Does that mean that we are bound by it? La. But if we do this, do we get reward? Yes, 100%. Does that make sense? But it's not, because here's the thing, the Prophet ﷺ never commanded that to be the case. Like, for example, if the Prophet ﷺ, we have a hadith, it's in the Sahih, where it says, كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقرأ في الفجر ما بين الخمسين والسبعين آية. It says that the Prophet ﷺ at Fajr would recite between 50 and 70 verses. Now these verses are from Al-Mufassal. Al-Mufassal is that last seventh of the Quran, 1/7. If you divide the Quran into 7 parts, the last seventh from Surah Qaf until the end is Al-Mufassal. Obviously these verses are shorter, but it says what? He used to recite between 50 and 70 verses. But that's a good amount. That can take you, you know what I mean, a good amount for the salah. If what's reported by who? The Sahaba who observed this. Now if the case was that the Prophet ﷺ said, if you pray Fajr, make sure verses. Obviously at that point we would have a choice. Most of us, we would be like, khalas, I have to reach the 50 mark and then I can do ruku'ah. You know what I mean? Or finish the salah. But alhamdulillah, that's not the case. The Prophet ﷺ made it open. We also have narrations, yes, like what he said, Umar would recite in the salah, what the Prophet ﷺ would recite on the day of Friday. We also have narrations where he recited less than this. For example, there's one hadith that mentions where the Prophet ﷺ in Fajr, in the first rak'ah, he recited Surah Al-Zalzala. And then in the second rak'ah, he recited Surah Al-Zalzala. He recited it twice. And the report of the Sahabi of this, what does he say? He says, لا ندري أنسي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أم تعمد. We don't know, like, did he forget or if he did this on purpose? Obviously, since we don't know, we just take it, the Prophet did this. Can we do it? Yes, 100%. It also shows you that it is permissible. You can recite the same thing in the first rak'ah that you recited. You can recite in the second rak'ah the same thing that you recited in the first one. Just as a general question. Obviously, does anybody do this? No. If a person did this, what would people say nowadays? what happened, Sheikh? So one time I did this at Fajr. One time I did it. I didn't tell anybody that I was going to do it. I recited Surah Al-Zalzala in the first rak'ah, and then Surah Al-Zalzala in the second rak'ah. Oh my gosh. People, there was a guy who was saying Subhanallah. Like in the and it continued. And then he realized, okay, maybe. And then said, Sheikh, what happened? Did you forget? Why did you? I'm like, no, actually, let me tell you, there's a hadith, and you recite, and I'm like, okay, very good. Nice. So we have, it happens. Okay? Yes? Naam? Oh, does it have a special place in the Quran? Yes, of course. Does Surah Al-Zalzala have Mayyizat? It does. What are some of the special characteristics of Surah Al-Zalzala? Does anybody know? Aywa, naam. Hadha hadith, there's a big debate on this hadith. But because there's a debate, we can't say like it's da'if. For example, there's other, so just so that you know, there's a whole science of Fada'il Suwar al-Quran. Right? The status of many of the surahs in the Quran. There's a whole science behind this. There are many people who fabricated entire ahadith about these. Fabricated. One guy on his deathbed, I forget his name now, he said, on his deathbed, I have fabricated every single hadith that I ever said about the Fada'il al-Quran. And the guy that he was telling it to says, don't worry about it, I already know, and I've been following each and every one. He's one of the tabi'een and he knew exactly, and he was a specialist in the science of hadith. This is why, subhanAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always sends somebody to protect the validity of the sunnah. Always. There will be people who will always make sure that whatever is narrated to us will always be purified, and this is part of the ayah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّا نَحْنُ نَزَّلْنَا الذِّكْرَ وَإِنَّا لَهُ لَحَافِظُونَ. We have revealed the dhikr, the remembrance, and we will protect. Remembrance is not just the Quran, it's also the Sunnah. Okay? So, this side is very dangerous though, because there are many fabrications and there are some authentic, and so there's always a debate. Many scholars are very cautious when they narrate these things because they know that it could very well be